What's up, you beautiful mother lovers? Welcome to the John Doe Experience, where we talk about things in the world from the perspective of an average dude. That's me, I'm average. So, let's go. Today, the 4B movement. So first of all, what is the 4B movement? The 4B movement originally comes from South Korea, where it kind of developed from there being a lot of misogynistic opinions in the population in general, when it came to dating, when it came to how men and women interacted with each other, and also when it came to policy from a government perspective, combined with it having one of the lowest birth rates in the world. So, the 4B movement developed. The 4B movement is about basically a group of radical feminists saying not having intercourse with men, not marrying men, no childbirth, and no dating men. This is now something that becomes popular in the US. A lot of media outlets report on it being the new trend. I think there's something that we need to say here first of all. Every once in a while there comes a trend that clicks really well with many different political spectrums and becomes very popular just through it being lucrative to report on it. Stuff like, for example, the whole quiet quitting trend. This is something that people most likely have not been actively doing. And it's kind of the same thing here with the 4B movement. In the Wikipedia article about the Korean version of the 4B movement, it says that it had roughly a size of 4,000 active people who are doing this. That is not a lot of people. And I imagine it in the US to be a similar situation also, as we just see these reels on Instagram and TikTok and so on. And those are actually not really credible news sources. So now news outlets coming out with it being like, oh yeah, there's the new 4B movement and people are doing this, and then showing an Instagram reel is kind of a good way to make a quick buck. And I'm all here for it. Guess why I'm making this video? Is this now actually a real thing? In the point that it's being said, I absolutely don't really think so. Of course, you will have a few people who actually be like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, no dating, no intercourse, no childbirth, nothing. Can we now completely put it aside as a topic that is just there to quickly grab some attention from the whole gender war dynamic, which is completely dumb on its own? No, we cannot. Because with this trend being popular, of course there will be effects in general society. First of all, this is kind of a knee-jerk reaction to now Donald Trump having been elected into office, and a lot of the conservatives in the US actually driving policies that are very anti-women and anti the rights of women when it comes to their reproductive rights. This has already been an issue in multiple states already, and potentially when Trump then is in office, he potentially will actually go for trying to get a whole abortion ban basically countrywide, which is relatively insane. And those are also things that you can already guess from the 2025 plan from the Heritage Foundation. So it's an absolute fever dream and an absolute clusterfuck. And as a woman, I can totally understand seeing this and going like, well, I'm not dating anyone who's involved in this process. That is totally valid, because not wanting to date anyone who actively wants to take away your rights is just a good idea. And if you are a woman watching this and your boyfriend or husband is basically wanting to support a party that wants to take away your reproductive rights, just like, make your decisions. This is not a good place to be in. Will it now lead to crashing birth rates and everyone going crazy about this? No, absolutely not. I also feel like this is a discussion that people are not actually having in real life, as I feel like there are not many women who are interested in this movement who are dating men who have voted Republican. I feel like this might actually be an issue in older couples that are together with different political beliefs, as back in the day this political discourse was not as hot of a topic. It kind of reminds me of a quote of Mitt Romney when he ran against Barack Obama, of him saying that he respects Barack Obama and that he disagrees with him on some points, but this is basically mutual respectful competition.
You don't need to be disparaging of the other guy. The president has run a strong campaign. I believe he's a good man and wish him well and his family well.
And this is something that we are very, very far away from now. And as a result, we still have couples from this period that are maybe married and in different political beliefs. And I feel like those relationships could actually be breaking up in the process of not really this 4B movement, but basically in the trend that is being described by the 4B movement. which to a degree is just common sense to not date anyone who wants to take away your rights, like I already said. Of course, beside this being about a relationship dynamic between men and women, this is also a thing that people are going to be doing for safety, because I feel like it's totally understandable to become abstinent in a society where basically you can potentially put your life in danger through becoming pregnant as a woman. And now saying, oh yeah, but then you could just use birth control and be responsible, it's just common sense. It's talking points that many more right-wing people are now coming up with. That doesn't work 100%. Those things don't give you 100% of security and can be affected by medication that you're taking and all these kinds of stuff. So it is definitely possible to still get pregnant even though you're using birth control. And of course, there are also people like Nick Fuentes who then come out and say stuff like,
men win again. And yes, we control your bodies. It's your body, my choice.
Which is completely nuts and insane, and it's that people go out and say shit like this without the worry of being sucker punched from behind from someone who has some kind of decency is insane, because stating a phrase like that is so incredibly disgusting and despicable. And even if it's said like, oh yeah, this was a joke, fuck this. Like, this is so super not okay, and of course there's going to be a knee-jerk reaction like that. I think another criticism that I'm having of the 4B movement is that it basically sees women as the gatekeepers of intercourse, and that is something that I don't agree with, and for me is more of a patriarchal perspective, actually. I think also something that is very important to keep in mind when talking about the 4B movement is how do we got here? How do we got now with Donald Trump in office and potentially these policies being put into place? A big drive on the right-wing side are young men and men in general, and that has very complex reasons that are big enough for a whole nother video. But to basically break it down is that male dating advice is, I think, pretty much at the center of this, especially from a very early age, from like 14, 15 on the social media platforms. And as someone who has been a young man myself, being 14, 15, growing up with this kind of shit, I can tell you the majority of it is just dog shit. And this would be not as bad if men would somewhat have basically a society around them that would teach them the proper skills to see this as bullshit, and also how to properly handle this in a society-wise acceptable manner. And especially in the US, of course, this stuff is with the different camps of like the Republicans and the Democrats, of course, a super big clusterfuck, as basically young men have been one of the bad groups, basically how they've been portrayed by the Democratic Party. And of course, this kind of stuff pushed these people a lot more to the right, and with more and more of the manosphere characters emerging, like Andrew Tate and all this kind of stuff, you will have more and more misogynistic beliefs in a young male generation and in a male generation period. So it's kind of a reaction to this trend, but I feel like if you would have wanted to actually do something with this, I think it would have been good to have this 4B movement actually about a few months before the election. I think it would have done a lot more then. Also, I feel like to a degree the 4B movement is basically trying to have a solution to a problem where you cannot really have an approach, as I would believe that not a lot of more liberal women are dating conservative men, especially when it comes to the younger generation, as a lot of the young men are just having a skill issue with dating anyways, and then fall into these right-wing pipelines and are then mostly single anyway. So there's not a lot happening there in the first place. And of course now the approach to when being in a happy relationship where like no one wants to take anyone's rights away, then going like, oh yeah, I'm now doing the 4B movement would of course be very dumb, and I don't believe that that is something that is happening. I think it's just a good base to land on to say, yeah, maybe not fuck people who want to take my rights away and not date them and all this kind of stuff. But I think this is something that people are of course already doing with their basic self-respect. So to basically sum it up, the 4B movement is about basically being abstinent due to security issues, which are very real, because if you don't have the adequate health care to take care of a pregnancy, or also with complications of a pregnancy, then why should you even risk potentially having a child and not like seek life quality in other areas, which is totally understandable. Also, not wanting to engage with potential partners who want to take away your rights. Totally fair point. Do I now think that the 4B movement is a real thing that's happening? I think to some degrees you will have people making these decisions for themselves, even though I think those have been mostly already standing. But the biggest part of the discussion around the 4B movement is basically around something that does not per se exist in the room, and it's basically only for grabbing attention in the whole gender war debate. And I think that's something to recognize also when basically looking at the media reporting on this, to not get riled up towards the opposite gender or anything. I don't think that is sensible in any way, first of all. And I think that this is also something to recognize for women as well, if you're watching this, because this is not an adequate way to fight for your rights, not because it doesn't work or it's unjust or whatever the fuck you're hearing on the internet, but mostly because it's not a real pressure point that doesn't really exist, and it's kind of a media hoax in my opinion. And I think it's a lot more important to try to get politically involved, to do political work that is based around policy and actually communicating with people to improve the women's rights situation in the US. At the same time, I also do have to say, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. Basically, the goal was to go and vote. That did not work out. So yeah, I guess we can kind of sum up, it's pretty fucked. It's pretty fucked, and the 4B movement is a bit of an attention grabber now on the social medias. Definitely, if you like this video, like and comment, and also subscribe. See you guys in the next video.